you have to be able to understand who your employees are first and foremost, right? Because you can't just go in there and do a blanket total reward system. And that actually goes to the statistics of highlight number one, which is 85% of HR leaders now prioritize personalized benefits to address the evolving needs of the workforce, right? So that's important. Exactly what I was talking about is that growth needs strength. You figure out who the employee is, what motivates them, and what are the things that they actually want to develop in. Not everybody wants to be a manager again. Not everybody wants to grow as far as responsibilities, but they might want to grow as far as intelligence and just being able to do their job better, right? So understand your employee and then attach what you understand from them to their motivation and find ways to do that. I mean, even as a startup, we can offer that, right? If our product manager came to me and said, "Hey, Zach, I want to take a course on XYZ, would you be willing to pay for it?" Now, as a startup, I could say absolutely. It just has to be under this threshold, right? So these small little things are not unobtainable, even for startups that are 100% bootstrapped like we are, right? So find those ways. Hey everyone, it's Zach Wright, founder of Grapevine Software. Welcome back to this week's Future of Work Weekly Report. For anybody that's new to this channel, this is where we're going to be discussing the hottest headlines and trending topics happening in the future of work. Anything from remote, hybrid, flexible, AI, productivity, you name it, we're going to cover it. Today, we are going to be discussing two articles, but we're combining them under the same highlights. So we have 5 highlights that we're going to go through today. And so let's go ahead and get started. The name of the articles that we chose, one is from Forbes, one is from IFA magazine. The one from Forbes is written by Alex Shubat. The title is "The Future of Benefits: Why Total Rewards Will Outshine Salary Alone in 2025. So we'll be discussing that. Article 2 is by Meg Bratley, and the title is "The Harsh Reality of Post-Pandemic Employee Turnover." The reason that I wanted to combine these two after reading them both was because I could see how the total rewards will also help with employee turnover. So we'll be calling out certain things that are prevalent to employee turnover, but then we're also going to be discussing things that could help overcome that. So let's go ahead and dive into highlight number 1, which is the rise of total rewards. So this is going to be coming from the Forbes article at first, and then we'll tie into some of the other elements of the article, the other article. So salary alone is no longer enough to attract and retain talent. Companies are shifting towards holistic total reward strategies that integrate financial compensation, work or well-being initiatives, development opportunities, and recognition programs. And so if you're not familiar with total rewards, that's kind of what they just summarized quickly there, which is financial compensation, well-being initiatives, development opportunities, and recognition programs. So you can see that there's all these elements. And if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're kind of tapping into all the elements that people need. So finances or financials, what are they getting paid enough, right? And if they are getting paid enough, are they continuously either getting promoted, getting raises, getting bonuses, whatever the case is that there? Then the well-being initiatives is the factor of the psychological needs and the physical needs of the employee, right? And so we'll most likely discuss those. If not, we'll try to come back to it. But you can think about like ergonomic stipends, or you can think about it of bringing in the Calm or Headspace app that allows employees to have access to it where they can do meditation, or gym memberships are included in their benefits package, things like that. Then we have development opportunities, which is what it kind of sounds like, but there's a lot of different types of development opportunities. When people think about career development, a lot of them are thinking only about promotions, right? But there's a lot of different development opportunities. And we talk about the job characteristics model quite often on this channel. And one of the mediating factors or mitigating factors of motivation, satisfaction, productivity is growth, need, strength. And what that means is that the growth opportunities of the company matches the growth need of the employee. And that is different for each person. So if I was an employee in an organization, I would want the promotion, the title, the raises, the growth as far as climbing the ladder. That's just who I am, and that's what I would want, right? So the growth needs strength for me would mean that the company has to match my level of growth that I want to experience at the company. Now, on the other hand, people out there don't necessarily want to be managers or leaders, but they want to become better at their positions. And so those development opportunities might actually just be, okay, Tommy, you want to get better at bootstrap. Okay, well, find, and I used to do this at the last company that I worked at, and I managed the sales engineers, and we had a guy on there who liked to tinker and learn and continuously learn and play around with the different elements, but we always made sure that it was attached to the position and how we thought, how can this benefit him, the position, and the company at the same time. And so he wanted to learn more about Bootstrap, and then he wanted to learn more about Python. And so what I asked him to do whenever we were creating our objectives and key results, I said, okay, we're all going to have an educational objective and key result. And so I said, go to Udemy, go to Coursera, go to Khan Academy, find a course that you think would be beneficial for you to learn, and then just expense it, right? And I mean, if you're talking about Udemy, you can get a course on there for anywhere from $10 to $150. I mean, there's higher ones out there, of course, but think about that. You spend $150 on an employee so they can learn and become better at their job and have that the growth and development opportunity, right? And that's matching their growth needs strength. So one, to be able to do this well, you have to be able to understand who your employees are first and foremost, right? Because you can't just go in there and do a blanket total reward system. And that actually goes to the statistics of highlight number one, which is 85% of HR leaders now prioritize personalized benefits to address the evolving needs of the workforce, right? So that's important. Exactly what I was talking about is that growth needs strength. You figure out who the employee is, what motivates them, and what are the things that they actually want to develop in. Not everybody wants to be a manager again. Not everybody wants to grow as far as responsibilities, but they might want to grow as far as intelligence and just being able to do their job better, right? So understand your employee and then attach what you understand from them to their motivation and find ways to do that. I mean, even as a startup, we can offer that, right? If our product manager came to me and said, hey, Zach, I want to take a course on XYZ, would you be willing to pay for it? Now, as a startup, I could say absolutely. It just has to be under this threshold, right? So these small little things are not unobtainable, even for startups that are 100% bootstrapped like we are, right? So find those ways. And then just to close this gap before, or this loop before we go to number 2, is the recognition programs. And so really what that is, you don't have to complicate it, right? There's tons of tools out there. We're going to be one. We're going to go into that direction probably next year, but don't quote me on that just right now. But the recognition programs is very, very simple, right? Like, we don't have the ability to attach core values in the post like we want to just yet, but that doesn't stop you from mentioning that person, shouting them out in a community post, and connecting it to a core value just by typing it, right? And then giving the example of what it is. Now, whenever you recognize someone, what you want to make sure that you do is you don't just do, again, you don't want to do the blanket recognition. You want to get specific, because every time that you recognize someone's behavior in the organization, it's telling other employees the type of behaviors that you are looking for, right? And so, yes, you're recognizing that employee, and that's going to be a little bit of a motivator for them. They're going to feel that praise. They're going to feel good about themselves. They'll probably speak to it about it with their wife, their husband, their kids, their family, but also employees. And then whenever you share it on the community feed, you're saying, hey, this behavior is what we look for in Grapevine, for example, right? And so that's why you attach it to the core values and you give the specific feedback whenever you're giving that recognition, because it makes them feel good, but then it also sets the tone for what you're actually looking for. So that's the total rewards that they're talking about here. And I think that's such a great idea. Whenever I read this, I had to talk about it because it's so important to just go beyond just the work that you hired them for and just the benefit of a salary, right? Because we'll get to in highlight number 2, which we're about to go to, we'll get to the importance of this along with work-life balance. So let's just go ahead and go to highlight number 2, and that is flexibility, the new competitive edge. Right now, this one is coming from the harsh reality of post-pandemic employee turnover. And so employees increasingly view flexibility not as a perk, but as an expectation. And they say almost 75% of companies without hybrid or flexible options struggle to attract talent. And 66% of recruiters report a rise in turnover due to strict RTO or return to office policies, right? Now, we've talked about these things on this channel before, but think about that. 75% of companies without hybrid or flexible options struggle to attract talent, right? Now, a lot of people are talking about the workforce being difficult, being able to get a job or to be able to hire someone. And then even further than that, it's harder for them to retain that talent, right? And so whenever you're basically starting with an uphill battle if you don't offer some sort of hybrid or flexible option. And you know, it's not that difficult. Again, we're talking about knowledge workers, but at the same time, whenever we talk about flexibility or hybrid, there typically is some element that could happen where even if you're working in a factory like I used to do, I want to remind people, I started off in the blue collar industries, right? So I did roofing for a few years. I did home renovations with my dad growing up all the way through college because that was the only job that I could get with playing baseball in college because there was such a weird schedule. And so like there are certain flexibilities, right? And so if you allow your team to maybe have just a few additional flexible days where it's like, hey, I'm only going to work half a day today because I got to go see my son or daughter recital at 3 o'clock or something like that, right? Or just give people the ability to do those types of things, and you'll see a little bit more satisfaction from them. And then the RTO policies, like we beat this so much, and it's just so strange that companies continue to try and do this and not have any reasoning behind it, right? They always attach it to culture, innovation, productivity, but like they never in the RTO mandate state that our productivity is low, so we're going to come back into the office. And they can never tie it directly to the remote work or flexible work being the issue, right? And so anyway, the additional statistics here, and this is actually coming from the American Psychological Association from 2023, APA. Globally, 52% of employees said they would take a 20% pay cut for better work-life balance. That tells you something. I just did a post on LinkedIn talking about that. Whenever we talk about flexible, remote, or the future of work, it's not actually about those things. It's about the shift in the dynamic of power. Whenever we were 100% in the office, we had to be there 9 to 5, often more than 9 to 5. The power was 100% in the employer's hands. And now whenever we talk about the future of work, remote, hybrid, so on and so forth, it's rethinking, dare I say, redefining the rules of work, because now employees have more autonomy. They have the ability to blend life and work with more life and not just work, right? Because in that setting of the traditional office, the thing that always took a back seat was the life part. So people didn't get to see their kids as often. People were commuting and wasting hours each day. There were so many different things, distractions in the office where you actually didn't get the work done. And then sometimes or a lot of times, in my case, you would have to take it home. Right? So that's something important to think about here. So let's go ahead and go to highlight number 3, which is building better cultures to retain talent. So you can see how all these kind of tie in together again. So businesses pushing for RTO mandates must focus on making the office experience meaningful. Now, in the article, they actually say, it's not saying like if you do the RTO, then you need to make the office experience more meaningful, but they are saying instead of an RTO mandate, from my interpretation, right? If you read it, you can tell me if I'm wrong. From my interpretation, it's more so that instead of the RTO, what we actually need to do is make the office experience more meaningful. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be in the office and make that office more meaningful. No, you could use something like Grapevine, your virtual office platform, and do these other elements that we're about to talk about. So no matter whether you're in the office, you do an RTO, or you're working in a flexible or hybrid environment, or you're 100% remote, the goal here is to improve and make the office culture better so that it retains your talent. So what they say that you really need here is clear communications, flexible policies, and supportive office cultures. And those are going to be the keys to creating environments employees want to return to. Again, not just in office. This has to be done wherever you're working from. The clear communications is such a key factor and a key element to making work work. And I feel like it's one of the things that gets pushed to the wayside often, right? And so clear communications can be policies, it can be behaviors that you support, it can be the operations that you put into place, all of those things. But you need to be clear and you need to set those expectations so employees understand what exactly it is that you're looking for from them. Now, this is just a leadership insight rather than a statistic, but this is again coming from the IFA magazine article. So Lucinda Pullinger, whichever is right, notes that flexible workspaces helps teams stay connected and productive no matter where they are. And I think what she's getting at here is that a little bit of time in the office is good because it keeps people personally connected and they can get certain things that they can't do at home, which I don't know at this point what you can't do from home or just working remotely, but it helps them stay connected and productive, right? And so in our concept of the future of work, what we actually believe the future of work is a mixture of, I call them own sites, because I think the majority of the time employees and workforces are going to be disparate. They're going to be distributed. They're not going to be working in the office every single day. And if they are working in the office, even occasionally, they're not going to be working in the office with one another, or there's only going to be clusters, right? So you're still going to need, this is the second part of the future work and our idea of it, is you're going to need that nucleus. You're going to need that centralized platform for communication and knowledge and productivity or collaboration, right? And that's where Grapevine comes in. We are that centralized platform, the place that your team calls home and the place that they can rely on to get all the important information, updates, anything that they need. And then they can also communicate, save, share, all those kind of things. And that to us is a little bit of the future of work. So you're going to have own sites where I would call that a flexible workspace, where maybe once a quarter, if you're able to afford it more, you can do it more. But once a quarter, you get the team into one location, if you can, if it's not like a huge company. And then you have those connection meetings that takes the offline or online conversations offline, and you get to know them a little bit better. In our tool, you actually get to know them no matter what, because you have the employee profiles and then you're just connecting with people constantly. The other part is just giving people the ability to have co-working space, stipends, and different things like that. That's our opinion here. And that's what we think the future of work is going to be: a combination of own sites, the nucleus or the centralized platform, the place to call home, your virtual HQ, Grapevine, and then you're also going to give somebody the ability to go into a co-working space if it's something that they desire. Not a requirement, but the ability to give people the options, right? That's what we think. All right, let's go ahead and go to number 4. Onboarding and development matter more than ever. This is coming from the Forbes article, the total rewards one. So the onboarding experience significantly influences retention. Employees who experience poor onboarding are far less likely to stay with their employer long term. Now, this is extremely important whenever it comes to flexible and hybrid and remote organizations, because you have to be intentional. You have to be prepared, and you have to make sure that that new employee is not a set and forget. And what I mean by that is you do all this time convincing this person that our culture, our company, what we're building and what you're going to do is the place that you want to go next to further your career. That's really what we're saying whenever we interview people and we choose to hire them. And then it's a really shitty experience whenever you do all that and then the person gets there and they're so excited. And then it's just crickets, right? And those crickets are louder than ever, especially if you work remotely. right? And so that's why I say it's more important than ever. And these are not negative things towards remote or flexible. I just want to be clear. These are things that we have to be specific about. And when we are specific and intentional about these things, that is why remote work and hybrid work to me is the better option, because you can't just get by with, oh, yeah, no, this is your first day. Let me send you over here and they'll walk you through this, or let me send you over. That's not a good experience either. And that's what typically happens unless you're a well-oiled machine, right? And so we have to think about this. In Grapevine, we're about to release Grapevine Spaces at the end of January of Q1 2025. And whenever you have that, you're going to be able to have a specific onboarding space. I mean, you can do anything with Grapevine Spaces, really. You can have sales spaces, you can have HR spaces, you can have onboarding spaces, you can have ongoing enablement space, whatever it is. But that's how I'm planning on using Grapevine Spaces is, okay, here's the company onboarding and training. This is where you're going to go within that space. You have all these different trainings, these pages. You can input YouTube videos, you can input Vimeo, you can, whatever you need to do, documents, all that kind of stuff. And this is how the employee is going to onboard. And then if they have any questions, it's literally right there. They can send us a Figgy chat. We can jump on an instant meet. We can have a quick conversation, or they might even be able to comment directly in that space, right? And so the whole point of that little thing is just make sure that you are taking the time to do the same things that you do during the hiring process and build up the company. You make sure that that first day, that employee feels like they belong, they feel like they're included, and they're part of the organization on day one. And don't just stop at day one. That should be day one until the entire duration that they are at that company, right? And that's how you actually increase retention. It's not, here's this perk, here's that, here's this. No, it's setting the clear expectations, being there and being supportive, and then also making them feel like they belong and they're included, right? Okay, and then this is actually a stat from the last Future of Work, but I wanted to bring it back up here, which is 43% of employees report their onboarding exceeded expectations, while poor onboarding can reduce intent to stay by nearly 50%. So that's just like nailing this home for you guys. Like, okay, exceeded expectations, that's pretty good. But that's still, what is that, 57, or I'm probably going to get it wrong, but whatever the difference is, I think it is 57%. That's more than half of your employees are saying that they didn't exceed, the onboarding experience didn't exceed their expectations. That's not good, in my opinion, right? You gotta bump it up. That's like, I met 43% of my quota. Well, you're getting fired, right? All right. Let's go ahead and go to number 5, and then we'll wrap it up with the key takeaways just to close the loop. Okay, the future. So number 5 is the future of benefits and flexibility in 2025. This is kind of just summarizing it in a sense. So as we head into 2025, the shift towards purpose-driven work and adaptable benefits will shape the job market. Companies that fail to meet employee expectations around flexibility and holistic rewards risk losing out on top talent to more progressive competitors. And then the additional insights, just to add from the Quadrix 2024 report, is young workers 18 to 24 years old are the most engaged, but have the lowest intent to stay, dropping by 15% compared to other generations when expectations are unmet. So basically what this is saying is that Gen Z or younger workers are not going to put up with the BS that a lot of the corporate world has been doing to a lot of the employees, which have made us lose trust in them, or many people lose trust in those organizations. And basically what they're saying is that if their expectations, the employees' expectations are not met, they are more likely to leave the organization. And that's important because they are the most engaged right now. So we have an opportunity as millennials taking over the space, and I don't know if there's another Gen X, I think. We have the opportunity to take their engagement and shape it around this new way, this shifting, this redefining the rules of work conversation, and make a better workforce for many people out there. And if we do this correctly, we can actually get back to a longer stay within an organization, right? But we have to shift how we think about treating employees. They have the power, or they have more power whenever it comes to flexible, hybrid, and remote opportunities. And the traditional companies that don't give that power to their employees, it's going to be a rough road for them. So that's something to consider. But let's go ahead and wrap this up with the key takeaways. This is the key takeaway of the entire show for today. Organizations must embrace total rewards. So not just compensation, not just benefits, but the entire, it's like the mental, physical, and pockets, right? So organizations must embrace total rewards, prioritize flexibility, and focus on creating meaningful workplaces or workplace cultures to stay competitive in the evolving job market. The future of work demands more than just a paycheck. It requires a commitment to holistic employee well-being and engagement. I get excited about this because this validates my thesis paper in 2016. So for 8 years, I've been thinking about this, and now we've actually turned it into a product that people can leverage to get some of this stuff done. And we'll continue to iterate on the product and platform so we can continue to make this a reality for everyone. But that is it. That's the Future of Work Weekly Report for this week. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share it with any other Future of Worker out there, or share it with people who don't agree and spark that conversation. And maybe we can see that silver lining between one another. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you on the next Future of Work Weekly Report.